Scheming up a potential victory? How coach Jeff Grimes can help the Badgers stay close in Tuscaloosa.
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, Wisconsin Badgers fans? Welcome to Locked On Badgers, your team every single day. Thank you for making this your first listen, being an everydayer. I'm your host, Ryan Harings. I appreciate you being here. Today's episode, we are talking about Coach Jeff Grimes, the offensive coordinator for the Wisconsin Badgers, how his scheme can help Wisconsin stay close in this game. Where can the Badgers scheme up some other options? How their defense is going to play against Alabama, and some thoughts on Danny O'Neal on the road. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Football season is here. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now. Let's get Curtis on the show. Obviously, Curtis Holland has joined the show a bunch. Great friend of the show. Excited to have him here. Digs into film. Really smart guy. Let's start with the offensive coordinator, Jeff Grimes. You and I both talked kind of before the show. We've seen Alabama struggle at times. Already this year with Florida State. Sometimes last year with eye discipline on defense. That's something Jeff Grimes is able to take advantage of. We saw it against Middle Tennessee State, especially in the second half for the Badgers. How can Jeff Grimes scheme up some things for this Badgers offense in Tuscaloosa?
Well, I think you just answered that question. I mean, it's putting their defense in conflict, right? So the key to this game in this particular matchup when we're on offense, they're on defense, is Jeff Grimes versus Kane Womack. Kane Womack, he's been an okay defensive coordinator. I don't know, if he was Bama fans' first pick for someone that they wanted for a long-term defensive coordinator replacement to Nick Saban and his legendary coaching string. But what he emphasizes is an aggressive stop-the-run downhill defense, essentially one read, go. Very similar in a way to a lot of the principles that Jim Leonhard, worked with at Wisconsin. But the problem with that defense is if your first read is wrong or you misdiagnose the play, you are moving 100 miles an hour in the wrong direction. And that's what you saw get exposed when we lost games with Jim Leonhard. Teams like Nebraska, teams like BYU when they had Grimes. And this is actually one of the games that I've actually looked at recently because I feel like that dynamic is very similar to what we're going to see on Saturday. When you commit and they fake a handoff and they run a jet or a reverse, right? Well, you're out of position to play. The other team's going to get 10 yards. Doesn't matter how athletic you are, right? Tretch will still get 10 yards. Vinny will still get 8 yards. It's going to happen, right? And so then now you're double thinking things. Well, this is where these things start to compound. Bama, in their first game against FSU, did not look like it had its act together on defense. Not only that, it looked like it didn't really have the effort or want to have its act together on defense. Now, that'd be one thing if it was one game, but we saw this happen last year. All of last year, you saw this exact same symptom happen. You saw them against Vanderbilt, not being in the right position, seeming like they had attitude, not really paying attention. You saw it against Oklahoma, looking like they didn't want to be there, looking like they didn't care, like they were believing their own press clippings. Tennessee. Then you see them against Michigan in the bowl game. Michigan didn't even know what a forward pass was. And they were out of position, right? And so that's symptomatic, right? That didn't get fixed last year. So then the question is, all right, they had one bad game to start the year with Florida State. They sort of righted the ship against ULM. I don't know how much stock to put into that. I mean, the year Paul Chris got canned, we beat New Mexico 66-3. So I don't know if that means anything, right? So the question becomes, did they fix that? Because his defense is fundamentally not effective against the type of offense Grimes runs. It's just a mismatch, right? And that's something we can take advantage of. And so then it just becomes, are they going to be disciplined? Are they going to be paying attention? Are they going to be playing smart as opposed to just, kind of going out there, committing to the wrong thing and then being out of position? And that's kind of the question that I have. And that's, I think, where there's a little bit of glimmer of hope for us on offense.
I think it's a really good point. You brought up Vanderbilt last year. You brought up Oklahoma. Those quarterbacks also, you look at the archetype of those quarterbacks. It's kind of the type of quarterback Danny O'Neal is. Now, he's not Jackson Arnold, but he can move the pocket. Like, he can make some things difficult.
I mean, he could be a Diego Pavia, maybe a little smaller, but he's quick. He's fast enough. He can, make some throws, make some off-platform throws. So then that's the other thing. That's kind of what you need to beat a defense like this. And that's why Jim Leonhard struggled against quarterbacks, because our rush lanes, we beat our rush lanes, and the quarterback just rolls to the outside. It's like, well, now what? I mean, you're kind of screwed. And so it's the same. Bama has that same problem, right? And so that's kind of where I think we can take a lot of advantage of what they want to do on defense, what their core fundamental principles are. And the thing with Womack's defense is that he knows that weakness exists. It's not like he's a quarterback at FBS D1 Alabama. He knows where the weaknesses are in his defense. His fix, though, was like, just out-athlete them. We're Bama. We have better athletes. And that works to a degree. It worked on us last year, right? But at some point, if you have the entire defense flowing one direction and then Tretch takes that reverse, like we saw against Middle Tennessee, the result's probably going to be about the same. Maybe he doesn't quite make it to the end zone. It's going to be a 30-yard run, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's still going to matter, right? So that's kind of where I look at that. And I think to myself, okay, there is a pathway for us to move the ball on this team. And, we'll talk about this too. It might not be right up the middle. We got some things we got to figure out there, but there'll be some opportunities to get them on plays when they're not properly covering their assignments.
I think it's a really good point. It's very well said. And a couple things you hit on that I would bring up. You talked about lack of effort week 1 against Florida State. And you could see, you don't need to be a football savant to go back and watch clips and you see their safeties jogging. You see people on defense that, Alabama never would have allowed that type of
Oh my God,
effort.
Nick Saban would be freaking there'd be assault charges coming to the facility on Monday. That'd be crazy.
I'm surprised he didn't go and like go kick down the door at halftime and like burn people to like. My point is though, I don't think effort is an interesting thing. Schematic stuff you can fix, you can get healthier, you can get better with young players can get better with experience. If people aren't playing hard week 1, to me, that points to like there's something a little deeper there that maybe the Badgers can take advantage of. I think effort's an interesting one here. I do think, getting back to your point, and we might as well hit it, the interior of the Badgers, this to me largely depends on how healthy Renfro is and how available he's going to play. If Jake Renfro can play and he can be 75%, because a lot of what Renfro brings to you, it's the intangible stuff. It's knowing the call.
It's the knowledge. Yeah, it's the calling the right, diagnosing the right defenses, understanding the difference between the false the false fronts. Womack likes to do a lot of fake blitzes and things like that. Like being able to kind of diagnose, look at the alignment, the legs of the player as they're lined up, like where their weight is on their feet. Just being able to see that, like that's going to be something that even a 75% Renfro, to your point, is invaluable because he knows what it looks like and he knows what to look for.
Let me ask you this, because Rajiv and I had this conversation the other day. I'm fascinated by your take on it. And I haven't prepped you on this. If you and I would agree, Renfro is incredibly important to this team going forward throughout the course of this season. If he is 75%ish, he could play, but you risk potentially, I'm just going to say, do you play him in a game that, out of conference game, it doesn't impact the Big Ten standings? You understand the point I'm making. My take was you play him because you owe it to the teammates to put him out there because you don't get a lot of shots at Bama because guys like Jake Renfro don't give me opportunities to play in Bryant Denny. This is a massive opportunity for the program. It's a massive opportunity for him, and it matters to the team. So I say, if he can play, you play him. Rajiv's point, and I'm not saying it's completely wrong, was the rest of the season really matters, and you need him healthy for Michigan, Iowa, Illinois, Indiana. Curious what your take on this would be.
Yeah, so I kind of have a nuanced take because the way I look at injuries is it's not really like you're like 75% healthy and then like there's like 25%. It's not really like that. It's more like, what is the injury, right? We don't know what the injury is. I don't know if you've heard anything. So depends on the injury. If it's an injury where it's like a high chance of like re-injuring if he played, then no, I don't want to play him because it's a high chance of being re-injured if he plays. Like that's just a bad decision, right? But if it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, his arm's a little sore, or maybe he's got a bruised elbow or something, or think like where maybe they had an abundance of caution last week or something like that, then yeah, toughen up and play him. And I think he'd want to play, right? And so, in that context too, if you're the O-line, chances are, for the most part, you're the one that can engage the contact. And one of the things that you learned, or I learned growing up, in a football household growing up, talking my dad played running back, is like the person who initiates the contact is not the one that needs to worry about getting injured, right? And as long as you're playing with that level of aggression, which I think he would do, then you'll probably be okay. And if not, you might even work through it and get, even more better. It's like the body will figure it out. It's like almost like a fight or flight thing where your body's like, all right, injury, but no, we're doing this now. Like I got to get over this and it'll push through it. Right. So like, that's kind of, how I would judge that. But again, it really kind of just depends on what his situation is. I have no idea what his situation is, if I'm being honest. I don't think, Fickle would like to put on like he had no idea what his situation was. So who knows? So I guess that would be my answer. I hope it's not a cop-out answer, but that's kind of how I think about it.
No, I think the nuance is correct. A point I made with Rajiv is if this is like a pain management thing, you got to play. And if it's I don't think it is, but if it was a high ankle sprain where like, listen, if you pivot on that wrong, you might miss 8 weeks. So then, like obviously you got to be smart here. All right, we're going to take a second here. We got a bunch more to talk about. Alabama, keys on defense against this Alabama offense. We got to get into that as well. And then a few more thoughts on what Curtis has seen from Danny O'Neal, how impressive he's been in Curtis's eyes. That's coming up next on Locked On Badgers. First, a quick second, our friends of the show over at DoorDash. And we got to talk about delivering. DoorDash delivers. Lance Mason delivers. Let's look back Last week, Lance Mason 7 for 102 in a variety of ways. Wheel route up the sideline, passing the seam, crossing route, an out route. You can hit Lance Mason in a lot of different ways, and he absolutely delivered last week, just like DoorDash delivers every Saturday with DoorDash Streak, saving you time every time you order. These players, DoorDash, they both deliver. Let's break it down. Again, we talked about Lance Mason. That was the kind of game that we expected after we saw him in Platteville. We saw him in practice. We expected a big season this year. I had him down as a second leading receptions guy for the Badgers in my prediction show. I think he can still get that. DoorDash also absolutely incredible. DoorDash delivers your Saturdays just like Lance Mason. With DoorDash Streaks, you save every Saturday you order, stack it up all season. You can save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms to apply. Promo through 11/18. Let's flip this around, Curtis. Let's talk Badgers defense against Bama's offense week one. Bama struggled a little bit. Ty Simpson looked a little off. Ryan Williams didn't look like the player that people had seen at times last year. Dropped a couple passes. Jam Miller's been hurt. I know there's been some issues with the tackles and pass protection. Last week, to your point, 73 against ULM. Ty Simpson was 17 to 17. They utilize play action a ton to get their guys open. Bernard is difficult to tackle in space. That's a lot I just gave you. Where is the biggest concern you have, Badgers offense versus Badgers defense, and where is the biggest strength you think the Badgers have here?
Yeah, and I think this is where, if you were to see a talent mismatch appear, this is where you would see it. It's Bama's offense versus our defense. That's probably where it would be most manifest. Grubbs' offensive system is an NFL system, right? It's actually similar to Grimes in a way. A lot of motion, a lot of trying to line up mismatches, create looks and whatnot. But it is kind of boom and bust in the sense that, like, if the look's not there, you kind of got to figure it out on the fly. And Ty Simpson's still a newer quarterback, still kind of getting that figured out. On top of that, what I would say is, in watching the FSU game, again, the effort thing carried over to the offense. Like, that line was a monster for the first half of last year for Alabama. When we saw it, we couldn't do anything against them, right? That changed for some reason over the course of the season. You saw that actively get worse. Not that they got worse from like a skill perspective. They just got worse. Like they weren't pressing the way that they were to start the year. And that carried over into this year. I don't know what that means. I don't know if they have a culture problem there. I mean, you can ask Bama fans about that. I'm sure they are all over the place on this right now. And a lot of them are wishing that Saban was still their coach. But that's, again, where I think if our defense is to have an advantage of this game, it's twofold. One, we have a veteran secondary that understands what they're seeing. They've seen this offense before. They've seen our misdirection in practice. They're not going to get fooled by the easy things that might get us out of position out the gate. Like I said, a lot of seniors, a lot of veterans. They kind of know what to expect, right? And then that front, led by Mason Reiger, is just malicious. They just get after it, right? The whole game, it's just high energy, high effort. That'll play. If Proctor's kind of like, I'm not really feeling like, oh, I'm tired, I want to, doesn't want to go at the level that he's capable of. Well, Mason Reiger's going to eat that up. Yeah. Just on an effort alone perspective. And Mason Reiger's the type of dude that would take that personal. You know what I mean? Oh, you're not going to try against me? Okay. Like he would take that personal. And that's, I think, what you're going to see. You're just going to see you might not get to the quarterback much. You might not get a bunch of sacks in this game. You might not get a bunch of tackle for loss in this game. But the offensive line is going to have to work its ass off. Like they're going to be coming at them 100%. And at least what I can say through the first three games is that, or the two games for Wisconsin, is that we've seen that consistent energy applied from our defensive line. Maybe barring the first quarter last week, we've seen that energy consistent throughout the games that we've had. And so that's something that I feel good about. The other thing I feel good about is we unless I'm misseeing this, and I haven't watched the defensive all 22 yet, but it appears to me like we run a lot of NFL style zone blitzes, and specifically a lot of what Brian Flores at the Vikings does, where we drop 6, rush 5. And that drop 6 is usually some kind of cover 2, like a deep cover 2, as opposed to just what people would usually do is like a 3-3 or cover 3. So a lot of cover 2 deep, so you're playing triangles on either side of the ball. And so I think, to that, it's a little bit more confusing. It's confusing in the NFL. It's more confusing in college football. And I think that will play well for us against a quarterback in Ty Simpson who's still kind of getting it figured out, still trying to find his place. Good quarterback, great talent. I think he's going to be fine as a quarterback. But in terms of being able to take over a game by himself, I don't know if I see that.
Yeah, Simpson, for Badger fans who haven't seen a lot of him yet, Ty Simpson, the Bama quarterback, first year starting, good size, good arm, more mobile than I think he gets credit for. He can move a little bit, good with the play action game. But to your point, he's young, he's inexperienced, and it is a veteran secondary. Dude, I'm with you on the edges. I think if this Badgers defense, I think this is one of my keys to the game. We'll get into a couple of keys to the game. If they can hold up on 1st and 10 against the run and put Bama 2nd and 7, 3rd and 6, 3rd and 5, I think Riger is going to win against Proctor. I think both their tackles actually are kind of heavy-footed. They're more power guys. I think Riger.
They're big dudes. I mean, they would be perfect for like Paul Chryst offense. You know what I'm saying? Like that's what they are. They're just big ass maulers. You know.
These are Barry Alvarez right tackle types. I mean, Caden Proctor is like 350. He's like 6'7", 350. On the other side, on the right side, it's Wilkin, who's like 6'7", 325. Dude, they're. I'm not going to call them plotters. They're not plotters. That's unfair to them.
No,
but
they're Alabama level Barry Alvarez tackles.
They're on fleet of foot though. Like quick guys have given them issue on the edge. So again, it comes down to Bama's going to want to dictate. They want to be in good position for Ty Simpson to then use that play action game, that Grubbs offense where they can get.
Well, and here's the other thing too. I don't know. And again, I full disclosure, I need to go back and rewatch the ULM game of Bama because I didn't watch that. It was 70. Yeah, I was like, I didn't really watch that game. But one of the critiques of DeBoer's system is that he's never really established the run, not in the way that Saban used to establish the run. Saban is an old school coach. I mean, he similar to Barry Alvarez. He's like, I'm gonna establish the run. Like, if I can't do anything else, I'm gonna be able to run the football, right? And I haven't really seen that from DeBoer's system at all. And the funny thing is, a lot of Badger fans specifically stopped following Bama after they beat Georgia. I mean, that was the game. The lights were going crazy. You know, Ryan Williams had his 100-yard touchdown. Like, oh my God, this team is crazy. Everything's crazy. And then they went and they go lose Vandy, right? And then they just kind of fell out of the face of what people were watching. Well, that team played another half a season. And after that, it was like they couldn't establish the run. Jalen Milroe was pretty much their leading rusher the rest of the year. Ryan Williams disappeared off the face of the earth. Dude, I don't think had more than 50 yards the rest of the season in any game. Like, he just disappeared, right? And that was the same way week 1 versus Florida State. Dude just disappeared. He didn't do anything. For whatever reason, he just wasn't relevant anymore. He's like CD Lamb on my fantasy team. Dude had like 4 drops. Like, I mean, cool. You know what I'm saying? So it's one of those things where I don't know what's going on with him. Again, this is interesting. Watch Bama channels. They talk about this.
Yeah, they do.
They're like, I don't know what's going on with Ryan Williams. Like, he's just not playing. If he's not playing, he needs to be off the field. Like, they literally are like over him, right? Their best receiver right now is Jermaine Bernard. I think he had a touchdown against us, and he hurt us a few times last year. He is as just solid as a receiver as it comes. I wouldn't say he's like elite, high end, first round talent, but he's a guy that's going to make a career in the NFL just doing the things correctly. Like, he is a solid player that you're going to have to play, right? And he's got skill, and so he's going to be probably their primary deep threat. But outside of that, like I said, I mean, it's an offense like us. They're still trying to find themselves a little bit too. Grubbs is a new system for them. I know they ran a lot of similar things last year, but it's still a new coordinator. They're still kind of getting it figured out. NFL concepts are not simple, right? So they've still got some work to do as well.
So here's the thing I had with Ryan Williams, and again, he's a 10-4 guy. Whether he's playing well or not, that speed just terrifies you on the field. Mm-hmm. And I think week 1, you see Bernard, to your point. Bernard's really good. Bernard, for Badger fans who haven't seen him a lot, really good in the open field too. They like to get him the ball in a lot of spaces. They like to give him the ball like we like to get Tretch the ball a little bit. Open space, let him break a tackle, let him break.
Well, I would say that Bernard is more like their Vinny Anthony, and Ryan Williams is probably more their Tretch in terms of how they would want to use these guys.
Well, I don't think we have a Ryan, right? Like,
no, but like from a conceptual perspective and from like just the purpose of this analogy, I'm not saying that. I mean, if Tretch Ryan Williams, that would be great, but I don't think that's what I'm saying.
Amazing. Yeah, I think that the thing with when you watch week 1, and again, I went back and to kind of start prepping for this week. I went back and I didn't watch the whole thing, but I watched a lot of the Florida State Bama game. I didn't watch any of the ULM game. I just don't care if a team wins 73-0. To your point, just like you shouldn't take anything from Wisconsin beating New Mexico State 66-3 in Chris' season. Like, you beat them 73-0. I don't really care, but there was a lot of Florida State attention on Ryan Williams, which is why I think Bernard gets 150 and 2 touchdowns in that game. Ryan Williams coming back shifts the defense a little bit, which gives Bernard more one-on-ones. And I think that's the spot that makes it difficult for the Badgers, because if Ryan Williams was still out, and it sounds like he's going to play, everything sounds like he's going to play this weekend, it makes it tough to load up on Bernard as much. And then they have a third guy, Brooks, who's starting to show out. So it's just tough, man. That's why you have to stop the run.
It's a tough matchup. If we could stop the run, then we could probably sit on the pass a little bit, and that would be a good situation. And, I do think that from a depth perspective, again, it's not that we have like high-level NFL talent D tackles, but we got 6 of them, right? So we can stay in the game from an energy perspective the whole game. And we start stopping the run, and we can maybe talk about this too, when we talk about Daniel Neal, but some of the other intangibles, we start stopping the run, we start stopping them on third down. Like, that stadium's going to get kind of weird. It's 11 a.m. game or 12 p.m. game. Bama fans aren't exactly thrilled right now. This is a team, that they think they should beat by 20. That's what the spread is, right? And so if we start making some plays, you're going to start hearing some groans and you're going to start hearing some boos, and it's going to get kind of weird. You know what I'm saying? Because while I think that we saw that definitely last week for us, this team spent all off season preaching adversity, and they showed up in the second half. To their credit, they showed up and they took care of business, right? I haven't seen Bama do that under DeBoer yet, right? And so I don't know if that's a problem that's handled. And so that's where, for me, it's like, can we get some stops in the run game? Can we play above our skis for enough to get them thinking about it?
I think it's a really good point, actually. I think if you get stops in the run game, I like our edge against their pass protection, Riger, Cheeks, Darrell Peterson, those guys. I think it's a really good point because you're getting them at an early start. That stadium's going to be kind of funky. And if you can, you have to have you can't start slow, which has been a fickle thing for years. Like you have to, if you can get up 7-0, 10-7, 13-10, it's getting into the second quarter. Maybe you get the ball after halftime. That crowd is going to be weird, man. And there is a chance, I've said this with Bama, there's a chance this thing could kind of come together. Florida State's a bit of a kick in the ass. They rally around a little bit. Or there's a chance this thing is kind of rotten at some level, and it could come off the rails. Either of those things could happen. I don't think we know. They're super talented, but I'm curious, man. All right, we got to take a quick second here. I do want to ask Curtis, we didn't get to in this segment. We're going to talk about Daniel O'Neal. I'm really curious what he thinks of Daniel O'Neal so far, potential future quarterback going after this year into next year, plus some keys to the game. That's coming up next, Locked On Badgers. First, a quick second for our friends of the show over at Mazda. Incredible sponsors that we get to work with on Locked On Badgers. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. We talk a lot about the point A to point B drives that we make in life. Why not elevate that a little bit? You spend a lot of time in a car. Let's elevate our experience in those cars. That's what Mazda does. All-wheel drive standard in every single crossover SUV. So you can drive with confidence through any season, which a lot of us in Wisconsin, that's massive. Plus, you can make everyday drives feel like anything but every day. Smooth handling, intuitive controls, Napa leather upholstery, incredible attention to detail. Just like the athletes on the Badgers, Mazda is all in on making this experience a little better, a little more elevated, something unique. Like every player at the D1 level, Mazda sweats every single detail because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. Today's episode also brought to you by our incredible friends over at FanDuel. NFL is obviously back. College football is back. And what a great time to get over on FanDuel. Right now, they have a can't-miss offer. I've talked about it. You're not going to find a better one than this. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and you're going to get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. You can use those bonus bets, parlays, teasers, futures, live in-game betting. If your first $5 bet wins, you get that $300 bonus offer, which is incredible. I love using FanDuel because it has every type of action. I've talked about it, live in-game betting. So even if games get out of hand at times, you can stay engaged in that action. Plus player props, which is like the greatest thing ever. Just over under what a player is going to hit for the game. It's easy, it's quick, and the payouts are super fast. So if you're ready to play, download the FanDuel app today by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. All right, Curtis, let's talk this, man. Daniel O'Neal. Could you have expected anything more than what he showed you last week in his first start for the Badgers?
Quite frankly, no, I couldn't. I mean, everything considered, you're starting in basically an entirely new offensive line with a backup center. You're the backup quarterback who's gotten basically none of the snaps up until last week because, things got kind of crazy. And, you're making your first start in Camp Randall as a true sophomore. And you go 23 for 27, in which, one of them was an overthrow just at the extent that Tretch landed out of bounds barely. One was a pick that bounced, was a fluke, the most fluke pick of all time. Should you have thrown that? I don't know. What should it have? The better question is, should it have worked? Yes, it should have worked. You should not have been running into the center when you were catching the ball on the screen. So I don't fault him for that throw. And then he had, I think, one overthrow and then one maybe bad throw, right? And so overall, he played about as good as a game as you could. You could watch him process the defense effectively. He's getting through his reads properly. He's playing the game the way it's supposed to play. He's incredibly intelligent. You can see that when he plays. But the thing that stood out to me about him the most, now there's negatives too, and we'll get to that. But the thing that stood out to me the most about him is his presence under pressure. I didn't realize this, so I looked it up. Middle Tennessee blitzed 80% of the game on Saturday. And when they blitzed, when they sent pressure, I don't know the specific statistics because I don't have the PFF grade for that. But Danny was on fire. They're blitzing, or I'm gonna throw it to where they're blitzing from. Like you can see it in the game film, right? And that is a veteran player presence. You don't just get that. I mean, Braden Locke didn't have that last year. They blitzed, he was cooked, right? But Danny stands in the pocket. He has confidence. He had faith in his line, even when the line wasn't showing up. And the thing that also got to me is he went in the locker room, basically kicked their ass, said, y'all need to get together. This is Wisconsin. What are you doing? Right? And then they come back out, and he has faith in them to stand in the pocket when he's getting blitzed 4 out of 5 times. He drops back, right? That tells you a lot about him as a leader. And so that, to me, like, was incredibly encouraging because that's exactly the mindset you want to see out of your starting quarterback.
Yeah, I was just trying to see if I can, while you're talking about that, pull up the PFF stats really quick of the Daniel Neal under pressure, but I couldn't quite get it. I think everything you said is dead on, though. And there were the touchdown pass on 4th down to Tyrell Henry. He had somebody in his face. The pass to Lance Mason down the sideline on the wheel route, he had somebody in his face. And, of course, Middle Tennessee State blitzed every time. That's what you should do if you have a backup quarterback and 4 offensive linemen in new spots. Try to light them up. I thought Daniel was nails. And I went back and, dude, I looked at every single throw he made. He made one bad decision, in my opinion. One. Now, he missed the throw to Lance Mason that was open, but it was a good decision to throw that. He missed that throw to Tretch, but that was the right decision to throw it there, right? There's a difference between decisions and then accuracy. I'm really looking for, are you making the right decisions? The only bad decision I thought he really made, if you remember, it looked like a predetermined read. It was a wheel route to, I think, Yak on the sideline, and there was 2 guys that were there, and he kind of...
Oh, yeah, and it was like thrown into, like, double coverage or something. And
yeah,
kind of
that was the only one.
Yeah, that was a weird one. I remember that.
I mean, you could tell that was a predetermined read. Like, they thought that.
I think Yak probably got bumped off his route a little bit too. I think that kind of messed it up.
It's possible. But there were 2 guys there. He shouldn't have thrown it. But again, that was the only throw I looked at and said, that's not a good decision. I thought for a redshirt, our sophomore quarterback, first started Madison, I thought he was awesome, man. And I came away thinking from that game, this could be a guy that maybe this year you don't need to go to the portal to find a starting quarterback. Because I almost wonder if Daniel Neal could be your guy starting next year. I don't want to replace him, Billy Edwards, yet. I don't want to anoint Daniel Neal too early. But I was incredibly impressed. And it gives me confidence heading into Bama because I think he has the right type of mentality to go into a road environment.
He's exactly that kind of guy that can go in there and not be wowed by the moment. Maybe, he walks in, eyes a little bright, a little bit bigger defenders. But after that, I mean, I think he's going to be locked in. He's the guy that's a competitor. I mean, some people, when they play the best teams on their schedule, they fold and they don't play well. I don't really like those players, especially if they're my quarterback. Some people play the best teams. They have their best game. Now, they might not win. And I know I've been very positive on our team. I don't think we win this game. But he's the kind of guy that, to me, strikes me as okay, this is Bama. They think they're hot shit. All right, let's see. Let's test it. Let's put them to the test. Let's see if they're actually as good as they think they are, right? And that's the mentality you want out of your starting quarterback. Now, here's what I'll say he could hurt us on Saturday because it wasn't all good. The problem that I saw consistently with Daniel Neal is that he was late on his reads. Now, he made the right read. He found the right spot, but it was like he held on the ball maybe a second too long. Maybe he thought, okay, this play is going to break open. Maybe he thought, maybe I'll be able to come back to my 3rd or 4th read if they just move a little bit more. You're not going to be able to do that against Bama. Like, that's just not going to happen. You throw late, you're going to get a pick. You throw off, timing, you're going to get sacked. Like, it's just not going to work that way, right? And so I think that could hurt us if he's trying too hard. There was one play I'm remembering specifically. It was a check down to Jones, and it was basically like a little I don't remember the exact name. It was you had a like a levels concept where you had a corner route and a drag, and then on the opposite side of the field you had a couple guys running deep digs, and like that play got open, but it's like he was waiting for it, and it's like you don't really have time to do that, so he checked it down, and then Jones got tackled at the line. If you'd have just decided to rip that, right out the gate when you saw that the linebacker moved, then, you might have been in a better place. And I think that's where he might hurt us a little bit against Bama because those windows aren't going to be there against Bama.
Give me, as we wrap up the show, we talked about some of the keys already, right? We talked about run defense. We talked about Daniel Neal. We talked about the offensive line. We talked about Grimes. Give me a key to this game that maybe not enough people are talking about, and then let's finish with score predictions. I'll tell you mine right off the bunch. I think one of the keys to this game for me is the receivers have to be able to get some separation to make tough one-on-one catches. I think Bama's going to play man-to-man. I think they're going to come down. I think they're going to dare Wisconsin's athletes to win on the edge. Vinny's going to have to win his share of those. Fretch is going to have to make some plays in space one-on-one. I don't know if Brooks can separate against his team, but if he gets an opportunity, he has to make catches, which he's done this year. So to me, that's one of the hidden keys of this game is the receivers on the edge have to win some of those battles for the Badgers.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great thing to put in note. And the good thing is Grimes is smart enough to recognize if they're playing man, we run man beaters. And that's the thing that like I said, I feel good about this, where Longo would always want to just say, I'm going to run my offense and whatever the defense does doesn't matter. It's like Grimes will go, you know what, if they're going to run man, we'll just run man beaters. Like we'll just stick to that until they change, right? And so that's something that gives me some encouragement there. I think the key to me, honestly, if I'm really feeling like we're going to get the upset, I think Renfro needs to play. Like that's the one thing I can't get around because he needs to be there to direct the line. That was probably the biggest thing. I think I saw that, Kadenko just not having that experience, not having played, maybe still being a little injured himself. I just think that that's the biggest difference. I think you need to have someone who's able to confidently diagnose what's going on with the defense, to call the right audibles, to make sure they're all set at the line, calling the right slide protections so that we can actually execute at a high level. And then, the hope is that Bama's in a worse funk than us. I think about, we talk about, is our team better this year? I think that everywhere outside of, at least at this moment, the offensive line is better than we were last year. I don't know if I could say the same for Bama. And on top of that, the another question is, who's in the better headspace? I kind of feel like we're in the better headspace, and we're coming in here with nothing to lose. We should play as such. Bama's got a lot to lose. It's at home. This is a team you should beat. It's in the Big Ten.
21-point favorites.
No, 21-point favorites.
Because here's the team.
This team Saban will beat by 50. You know what I mean? Like,
really quick, I think it's a really good point. If we wake up Sunday morning, Bama beats Wisconsin 50-17. There's nothing other than a byline on ESPN for that. If Wisconsin,
fans are going to feel the exact same way they did before we went to the game.
If Wisconsin goes into Tuscaloosa though and wins 32-28, that's front page news. So Wisconsin should play like that. They don't have as much to lose as Bama. Go in there, take a swing, don't play scared. And I really actually feel, given the circumstance with Daniel Neal, backup quarterback, to your point, Renfro has to play. If Renfro plays, I'm excited to see what will happen, man. If Renfro doesn't play, I get worried about this interior of the offensive line, man. I get worried about what that impacts to Daniel Neal, what it does to the running game. I think maybe that leads to a couple turnovers, short fields for Bama. Renfro's got to play, but I feel pretty interesting about it if Renfro plays.
Well, and here's the other thing, too, and I got to double fact check this because I saw this and I wasn't sure if it was accurate. Apparently, Bama has no sacks on the season.
0. That is accurate.
Yeah. So, I mean, and our pass protection is better than our, run blocking. So that's encouraging. Like I said, 0 sacks. They are blitzing. It's not like they're not blitzing. It's not like they weren't trying to beat Florida State. So, you know what I mean? So, like, that's where there's just little things here and there that make me feel like we'll be in this game more than I think the national media is giving us credit for. Going to score predictions, though, if I have to go off paper, that's where it gets tough. I think for me, if Renfro plays, I think you're looking at something like a 35-17-24 Wisconsin or Bama, right? If I'm just going off paper, because I do think that he's going to make that much of a difference. If he doesn't play, I'm thinking it's going to be more, again, like probably 35-38 to like 13. I just don't think we're going to be able to move the ball efficiently, get the run established enough to really make this a winnable game.
He is the great Curtis Holland. Thank you, as always, my friend, for jumping on the show, dropping a little knowledge. For Locked On listeners, Locked On is doing like that we always do for big time sports. It's another big moment for Locked On. College football fans, Locked On and Fire TV present College Football Kickoff, your ultimate college football weekly preview. Drake Toll over at Locked On Big 12 leads the conversation alongside two-time AP Coach of the Year, Gary Patterson, former college star Jesse Hawley, and Locked On's local experts. It's a college football preview only Locked On can do. Catch college football preview every Thursday throughout the season. This only on Fire TV. We'll definitely be back tomorrow, guys. Curtis, thank you, as always, for jumping on Wisconsin, and let's talk more Badgers tomorrow.